Hi, I'm Allison Lovemore.
I'm Jordan Lovemore.
Cool, and we're going to talk about mocktails or zero proof cocktails today. So as long as people have been drinking, they've also been not drinking. It started, I believe, the most famous mocktail to date is probably the Shirley Temple, as we all remember that nuclear red drink that came into your
super natural color.
Yeah, very, very natural coloring. But they've been actually going back even further than that. 1916 was going to be the first time that we actually heard the word mocktail come into history. But before that, they were actually called temperance drinks. In 1862, Jerry Thomas, which a lot of mixologists or bartenders would know, the professor of cocktails, wrote a book about bar cocktails. And there was a whole section about temperance drinks, which is what they actually called mocktails previously to that. And it was just about 15 different recipes of ways to not drink but still have fun. So today we're going to kind of break through 3 different ones, kind of progressing through history. Starting with the Shirley Temple, because how much nostalgia does that bring, just seeing something very similar to that hit a table and then make it really light and refreshing and delicious.
So progressing through history, but also progressing a little bit in intensity and difficulty. So next is going to be an aloe margarita of sorts, and then we'll finish with a Negroni.
Pomegranate, if you will. So yeah, please kind of follow along and enjoy. So the first mocktail we're going to do is going to be a play on a Shirley Temple. More so a play, more just making it as natural and delicious as possible.
So first we're going to start with the garnish. So that is ready to go once the cocktail is made. So she's going to be putting together a classic, what's called a cocktail flag. It's a classic garnish on classic cocktails such as a Tom Collins and various others.
Sours.
So it is sours. So it's an orange slice that is either wrapped around or skewered with a cherry. So since a cherry is a classic garnish of a Shirley Temple, and then we have an orange element in this cocktail, we're combining those two. We thought this would be a natural selection for this garnish.
So I've cut the orange in half, and then I'm going to cut it in half again, so quarters, if you will. Math. And then really you're just going to slice off these ends here. Always watch out for your fingers. Get rid of these. Just get them out of here. And then you're going to slice it all pretty, all uniformly down to where you essentially have these little tiny segments. And the thing that makes it a flag, it's actually a very, very simple cocktail. You're going to grab a skewer and you're going to take this and you're just going to stab it right through the top. And then you're going to grab a cherry. We are using Luxardo cherries, but really any cherry will do. And you're going to put that on the end. And then you've got your garnish. So we're going to put that aside for after the cocktail's made. Beautiful.
All right, and now we're rolling into the actual cocktail. So typically a Shirley Temple is grenadine and Sprite, and then ice. That's really it. So basically what we've done, we've kept all of those elements, but kind of both elevated and simplified them a little bit. So Sprite being a lemon lime soda, we are going to use lemon juice and lime juice. So we're doing half an ounce. This is lemon right here. Half an ounce of lime.
It's really intense stuff here, guys.
Watch out. And then this right here, we've made a pomegranate simple syrup, basically. So everything that's in this little carafe here, it is literally just pomegranate juice and sugar.
It's pretty easy. You can reduce it down. We just have a pint container, half filled with sugar, some pomegranate juice, and then you can put it on the stove and reduce it. But really, over time, sugar dissolves in even room temperature ingredients. So no need to get too fancy in your kitchen and create a lot of dishes.
Yeah, this one's made to be, this mocktail's made to be very easy, very straightforward. As you can see, we're building it in the glass, so minimal prep, minimal dishes, and all of that. So grenadine, to back up a little bit, grenadine, grenade in French actually means pomegranate. So we typically associate grenadine with cherry, which it kind of has become that, like a cherry syrup. But classically it was actually a red fruited simple syrup. So you can mess around with this. You can do raspberry, strawberry, combination of all of those things. But we went for pomegranate. And so last thing, we are going to add a little bit of orange blossom water. So this is kind of your just little extra dash of something special to make it more than a pomegranate lemonade, basically.
And this stuff is super potent, which is why Jordan here has grabbed a dropper, because you can definitely, a little goes a long way.
So I'm literally gonna do 4 drops of this. Obviously, and with any of these ingredients, feel free to adjust them to your taste.
And y'all can't smell this right now, but even opening this bottle, the whole bar is filled with orange blossom fragrance.
It smells great.
It smells beautiful. It's a cheat code to any mocktail, to be honest.
That's so true, yeah.
She's gonna add some ice here. And then we're gonna top it with soda water, which is like the bubbly element of this.
And then basically this in combination with the sugar and the lemon and the lime, we're kind of making our Sprite in a way. We're using Montaigne, local quarry water.
And this layering looks really, really cool, but you're definitely going to want to give it a roll here.
So a roll or a stir.
Nobody's wants to have just like one sip of regular soda water and then get down to the bottom and have one sip of just like lemon lime syrup. So it's a really gorgeous color, as you obviously can see. And then we're going to revisit that garnish we did.
Our flag is ready.
And then you're just going to stick it in there. And you've got a really delicious, beautiful cocktail to serve at any party, mocktail. So cheers. All right, so we're back again. We are doing a play on the Virgin Margarita. As we were kids, you go to a restaurant and you can get a Virgin Daiquiri, and you can get a Virgin Margarita and a pina colada, and feel like an adult once again. But also as an adult, it's a really nice kind of jump to be able to do, have a really nice refreshing beverage, but can still drive home, which is an ideal thing to do.
And yeah, so we're getting a little more complicated here with the help of our little friend here. So all we did is took a whole lemon and then cut a little wedge out of it. And this is so that we can rim the glass with salt. We're gonna do a half rim because not everybody is into the salt. So just stick that in there, roll it around a little bit.
Let him eat
it. And then we have a plate of salt, just roll that around.
If you don't feel like wasting a whole lemon and creating a friend, you can also do just like a nice wedge of a lime wedge or something. This is just kind of a fun thing if you're doing multiple drinks. So yeah, and then you've got this really beautiful rimmed glass that people can pick and choose when they want salt or not to add depth to it.
So this one is a little more annoying to make. Getting a little more complicated. So this giant thing is an aloe leaf. Most grocery stores have them. We bought this one at Publix, so you don't even have to go to somewhere fancy like Whole Foods. And once again, I like to do about a inch both ways of this aloe right here, but do it to your taste.
Be careful, it does have spikes, as these plants do.
That's true.
But it does also cure.
So I'm doing a piece about this big. And then something really important with aloe, so there is latex on the inside, and so we'll have to obviously cut off the outside to get the gel, but then also we'll have to wash off the latex that coats the outside of the gelatinous substance.
And one thing that's really cool using this aloe in this zero proof cocktail is it adds this really nice depth and vegetal note that you get in a regular margarita, because that tequila does have that vegetal note to it. So kind of adding this really kind of mimics that agave plant that's coming from Jalisco. So as you see...
Yeah, so what I'm doing here, so I cut off the flat part is pretty easy to cut off, right? You just kind of stick your knife in there and then slice it.
So you're getting skin pieces.
And then this right here, so you start to where you're kind of flat on one side, and then you kind of wedge the knife in there a little bit, and then you hold the knife flat between the cutting board. So the bottom of the aloe, the skin of the aloe, is in between the cutting board and your knife is more or less flat. And then you can kind of slice it. You can kind of feel where the skin is, and you just kind of follow it and then slice it right off.
As always, be careful when using sharp objects.
Okay, so you're left with this gelatinous sticky substance right here that I can't hold with one hand for that reason. And so I'm gonna wash this off real fast, make sure it's safe to eat. And we're throwing this right in the cocktail shaker, so I'm gonna cut it up a little bit to make sure the pieces are easily broken down when we shake.
And just kind of dicing it is a really good way of making sure that it's evenly distributed through the cocktail.
Slimy goodness.
And then while she washes that off her hands, it is very slimy, as she said. We're gonna build this mocktail. So we're gonna start off with a little sugar, because most cocktails need it. When you're doing a mocktail, you're gonna want to balance the sweetness and the sour. So we're gonna do 1 ounce of simple syrup. Simple syrup is just that. It's very simple. It is equal parts water and sugar. Please don't put lemon in there. You can, but that's different. And then just like that grenadine we made earlier, you're gonna let it dissolve, the sugar dissolve in that water, and then it's going to become that really clear liquid that you see to add to any beverage that you may wish. Next, we're gonna do 1.5 ounces of aloe juice. So we did break down that aloe to put in there, but this can be found at pretty much any store. We also bought this at Publix. We bought this at Publix, but that is, you can kind of go anywhere you want.
And so this is adding more, like a little bit of flavor, also a little bit of volume. We should note that we did pretty much double what you would make, like the ounces that you would make for a typical margarita, because without the tequila in there, you're losing quite a bit of volume. And so to make sure that this is a full mocktail, we pretty much doubled everything. And so this is adding flavor, but it's not adding that like intense vegetality and funk that the actual plant is adding. So we do like both, but if that vegetality is not for you, then probably just the juice would do it for you, and that would be easier. So.
Yeah. And instead of dealing with this crazy plant, you could add a little bit more, maybe do 2 ounces of that if you aren't able to find the aloe in your local grocery store. So yeah, we're gonna do 1.5 ounces of aloe juice. Beautiful. And then there's really nothing like, I was talking about that balance of sweet and sour. Lime juice. Margaritas always need them. So do mocktail margaritas, and you're going to do 1.5 ounces of that as well.
And the margarita is the #1 cocktail in the entire world. The most popular cocktail in the entire world.
We love making them.
Yeah, I mean, they're delicious. I don't disagree with the popular opinion. And it's in it's in a family of cocktails called the sour. So you might have heard of that. It's a very broad category. It includes a sidecar, a lemon drop, a daiquiri. I mean, most
whiskey
cocktails.
sour.
Yeah, whiskey sour, vodka sour. Most cocktails with a citrus and a juice is in that family. And more specifically, this is in the daisy family. But
okay.
too much.
But what we're gonna kind of do, because a margarita does have an orange element to it, so margarita's triple sec, lime juice, and tequila. We're gonna do a royal shake, or something that's called a royal shake, which is essentially we're just going to peel a piece of orange, just to get the zest in that peel to there, and we're gonna add that to the mocktail.
So every part of the citrus has a different flavor. So the inside fleshy part is probably the part that most people are familiar with. That's obviously very juicy, a little, especially in the case of the orange, sweeter. So the outside is where all of those oils live. So you're getting a more tart, a more like tip of the tongue, almost tingly sensation. And so since, we're not using triple sec, which is in a margarita, and some people will put orange juice in it, but I find this to be a cleaner and more linear addition.
Yeah, as you see when you do things, and maybe we'll catch this on camera, it will do a nice zest in there, which is like the bartender's perfume almost. I think I just made that up, so don't quote me on that.
I love it.
But it's a really nice way of getting those aromatics without actually adding more volume and juice. So we're gonna shake that up in there. And as you remember, we did have all those aloe pieces in there as well. So it's getting a lot of extra texture just from the plant and that peel. Now please hold your ears because it's gonna be pretty loud. And the point of shaking is to make your shake until your face looks stupid, because it's not going to be diluted enough. It's not.
I would say dilution is one of the main differences between cocktails in a restaurant and making cocktails at home. If you have found that a cocktail you've made is both too sweet and too tart, it probably just needs more water.
Tastes like melted ice cream or sorbet. That means it's not diluted enough. And then all you need to do is, you can always add a splash of water if you don't want to do that arm workout that I just did. But either way, it works really well as long as you just get enough water in there.
Yeah. And if you're new to shaking and new to making cocktails, my recommendation would be shake longer than you think you need to.
Always.
And when you think you're done, shake it a little bit longer. And it's always taste as you go. And if you like it, and then it's done.
So yeah, you can get some practice on that shake weight too. Double strain. Dump. No. All right, and then we're gonna strain. This is a Hawthorne strainer. Put it on top, and we're just gonna strain that in there so that we can get all of that really delicious juice.
And you can totally just dump it in there.
You can dump it in there. We're straining because we have that orange peel and that aloe. And then you're gonna add ice. And depending on garnish, we're gonna use that salt rim as a garnish.
Yeah, you can throw a lime on there.
You can throw a lime peel, wedge, kind of whatever you want. There is that orange in it. Yeah, just shove that in there. And then you've got like a really nice, delicious rimmed cocktail to serve at mocktail to serve at parties. And cheers.
You really want to make cocktails.
Oh, it's so good.
Last but not least, so once again, we are getting a little more complicated and also following the evolution of the mocktail. So the kind of new thing really in the last 5 years are non-alcoholic spirits. So non-alcoholic things that are in some cases distilled, in these cases distilled, but made to be close to things like gin and aperitivi, which this is. So we're going to get as close to a Negroni as we think that we can. So a Negroni is a very classic cocktail. They say it is the only cocktail that was invented by a guest. So the story goes that Count Negroni entered a bar and ordered an Americano, which is a cocktail that is sweet vermouth, Campari, which is a bitter red aperitivo, and then soda. But he ordered an Americano with gin instead of soda.
What a drunk.
I like his style. The bartender garnished it with an orange instead of a lemon to differentiate the two drinks. And the Negroni is one of the most popular and objectively good cocktails in beverage history. So we're going to get as close as we can. So we have Pintier. They don't call it a gin, but they call it a botanical spirit.
Non-alcoholic spirit.
But you kind of know what they're up to, right? So this is Wilfred's Aperitivo, so that's our Campari element. And then this right here is Pinot Noir grape juice. So once again, getting as close to sweet vermouth as possible. So sweet vermouth is an aromatized fortified wine. So assuming you know what wine is, to fortify a wine means to add alcohol to make it stronger. Yeah, and then to aromatize it is to basically add flavors. So some typical spices that you would add are baking spices, allspice, clove, anise,
orange peel, all of that.
And then citrus peel.
One thing you can do with this which we've chosen not to because we live in Atlanta and it is pretty hot here. So this makes it more of a more summer drink for us. But you could reduce this wine down with baking spices, all the things that she said, orange peel, and make it into a more dense, concentrated kind of sweet vermouth-esque. But we really like the brightness of this Pinot Noir juice.
How light and fruity the cocktail.
So we chose not to do that, but that is definitely something that if you're getting towards those winter months, kind of, I feel like everything, kind of like in a kitchen, experimentation makes for really great outcomes. So do get in the kitchen, boil this down, add some aromatics.
Find what you like, yeah. So yeah, that's how you do it. You would throw this in a pot. You put it on like medium heat to where it's boiling lightly. And what's going to happen is the water is going to evaporate, and you'll be left with basically concentrated Pinot Noir juice, and then you can throw in whatever herbs and spices, some like orange and lemon peel.
Do what you feel. Peppercorn.
Okay, so we're gonna get started here. You can totally make this in the glass that you're gonna serve it in, but we're going to stir it in here and then strain it into this Negroni glass here. All right, so like I said, equal parts, super easy. So we're gonna go 1 ounce of this in a botanical spirit, 1 ounce of Wilfred's in a aperitivo, and then 1 ounce of this Pinot Noir juice. Pinot Noir juice, not super accessible, so you can find, I would say just find the fanciest grape juice that you can find.
Yeah, and honestly, one thing that's really amazing for the last 5 years with all these NA spirits coming about is there's really an endless amount of possibilities of what you can find in really nice liquor stores now, or bottle shops. There's even bottle shops that are dedicated to NA only, and there's bars that are dedicated to NA only, because you don't really have to be drinking to make beverages.
And to have a good time.
To have a good time. And I really love that the culture now is less revolving around alcohol and more just revolving around tasty beverages, which we've all been trying to do for decades.
So a note about shaking versus stirring. So they both add dilution, right? So ice is melting either way, so it's adding water. But they add a different type of dilution. So as you can imagine, shaking is a more like rough act, right?
It's breaking that ice up.
It's breaking that ice up. And really because of the juice can get really sticky. And so you want to add kind of more water and more air and more just action, like more kinetic energy, to thin it out and break it down and make it taste and feel good. With stirring, that's typically reserved for things that don't have juice. So a Negroni, a Manhattan, a Martini. Yeah. And that maintains, so without that juice, all of these are kind of silky smooth textures, and it maintains that texture. So if you, typically, there are always exceptions, right? Typically if you would shake something like a Martini or a Manhattan or a Negroni, you would lose that mouthfeel. You'd lose that like round, pleasant texture.
All right, she's gonna strain this.
Strainer.
Take a Nora glass. That color is so beautiful. No.
All right, Elle, thanks for hanging out.
Yeah.
Thanks for following along. I hope that wasn't too boring and it was helpful and that you get to make some delicious mocktails.
Yeah, we hope you took a little bit, some tips and tools, and next party that you have, you're going to blow their minds and let them all drive home safely. So thanks for following around. See you next time.
Happy con!